One of my favorite groups after a long hiatus just issued a new CD, Garbage, and it's called Strange Little Birds, and I'm deep into it the last 10 days.
Oldies but goodies for me. I listen to a lot of U2, and then also stuck on the 80s hair bands. So I'm listening to Tesla and Slaughter and some of those old hair bands from the 80s and 90s.
Public art. And I always find public art surprising and inspiring. When I was in Australia and New Zealand, you never knew what you would see going around each corner, and it made you think about life in different ways in a different context. I really enjoy public art.
My inspiration is my father. He passed away at a young age, and I look at all that he did in his short life, and it was pretty incredible. All the way from attending every single one of my sports games, to all my sporting events, to my graduation, to anything we did that was special, he would be there for my sister and myself.
Probably the day I passed the last of my doctoral orals. I had 5 days of 8-hour exams, and the end of that Friday, 5 o'clock, I felt like I knew everything. I've since learned otherwise, but in that moment, boy, I felt I was just about as smart as I was ever going to be.
My proudest moment is probably the adoption of my 3 kids, all for different reasons. The first one, of course, we met with a birth mother when she was only 11 years old, and were able to adopt and go through the birthing classes. The second adoption was my second son, and that was more or less word of mouth through the adoption agency. They called us up and said, hey, would you guys be interested in adopting again? And so we got excited and got bundled up pretty quickly and ran up and met with the birth mother, and were able to adopt him very shortly after that. And the third one, of course, was my daughter, my little princess. And that one was, once again, an aunt had met somebody that she worked with, and they said, you know, there's a girl up for adoption, would you guys be interested? And so definitely we, for different reasons, I think that was probably some of the reasons that I loved adoption so much and loved that moment in my life.
To Kill a Mockingbird, and Atticus Finch, to me, was always the ideal father, and that just struck a chord with me. And the heroes are little kids, and I have a soft spot in my heart, especially for little girls. I have 3 granddaughters, and they're the love of my life, so that is my movie.
Yeah, the great outdoors. I'm an outdoorsman, and it makes me laugh every time I see that with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, there's so many to choose from, but probably The Lone Ranger, which is sad to say because I really like Johnny Depp, but not even a dead crow on his head could save that movie. It was a big, bloated mess.
The Sharknado series as being probably the worst I've seen, and that's only because my kids watched it and they thought it was great. So when I sat down with them and watched it, it was pretty pathetic.
Probably becoming accepted and maybe even respected by the union leaders I work with. I came from a higher education background and a private foundation background, and suddenly had to represent union roofing contractors with business agents who had worked on the roof and viewed me as from basically another planet. And it took a long time to convince them that I understood their issues, that I was listening to them, and that I was human too, despite my degrees. That was hard, but I've gotten there.
December of 2015, I was in a motor accident right outside the NRCA building here. I was hit by a 5,000-gallon water tanker and rear-ended. Didn't think too much of it at the time, but in the end, what ended up happening is I had a concussion, and then also, due to the concussion, received double vision in my right eye. It took over 6 months to recover. I was relatively a prisoner in my own home. I couldn't drive, I couldn't watch TV, couldn't read, couldn't look at the internet, do anything really. So a lot of talk radio, and believe me, talk radio during an election year, it's pretty rough.
Chicken Parmesan, and one of the most horrifying parts of my life was about 10 years ago when I came to Chicago to this very meeting and walked over to Papa Milano on State Street, and it was gone.
Venison, love making anything with venison. Typically that's what my entire family lives on during the whole year.
4th of July, I just love fireworks.
I love Christmas. I love it because it's a time when my entire family gets together. We celebrate together. I think last year we had 57 people over at our house for Christmas.
Anywhere with all of my granddaughters, probably taking them all to Kauai would be absolutely perfect for me.
Custer National Park, including Mount Rushmore, and then we went to Yellowstone after that, and after that we ended up in probably my favorite place out of the whole trip, and that was Glacier National Park, and celebrated for 21 days there and just had a great time. The beauty of Glacier National Park is fantastic, so love that.
The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. And that's something Helen Keller said that's always stuck with me.
Carpe diem, and he seize the day. And a little bit of that kind of goes back to making sure that you do grab everything, live life to its fullest, and live every day for what it is.
Open-minded, loyal, and fun.
Coach, as I coach lacrosse, baseball, basketball, soccer. I don't do dance with my daughter yet, but there's been talk about that. So I'd have to say coach, probably father, as I try to do most of those things with my kids, and then lastly friend, as I try to aim to be a good friend to my friends that are out there, neighbors and family, and then also my wife.